Don't seem to feel at ease about Islam. As the chap in the report there that Katie Razzle interviewed said, there's always a negative. There's a kind of code in various newspapers, TV, that it's something to be feared, whether it's British Muslims going out to fight in Syria, or TV broadcasters erroneously saying that Woolwich attackers had a Muslim appearance.
Well, sure, but I mean, Woolwich attackers, for instance, did say that what they were doing was in the name of Allah. And you can't blame people for noticing that, in the same way you can't blame people for noticing news stories that go on, like people from Britain, born and brought up in Britain, going out to Syria to fight jihad in Syria. You can't blame the general public for noticing these things.
There's a lot of talk about immigration lately. Take a look at this clip with Douglas Murray talking on UK's Channel 4. We'll watch it together and then we'll talk about it. But first, hit that subscribe button over there in the corner. We'd love to stay in touch. Check this out.
Ali, the Labour MP for Bethnal Green and Bow, and the author Douglas Murray, Associate Director of the think tank, the Henry Jackson Society. Douglas Murray, what's the problem?
Well, I mean, the Times story, as your report mentioned, is not actually terribly new. The figures are from the 2011 census. There were some very striking things in that census, which have not all been picked up, and the Times picked up on a part of it today. I think there is significant public interest in this story, and legitimate public interest.
Public interest or public concern?
Well, both. I mean, of course, they go hand in hand, don't they? I mean, the public are interested in things they're concerned about.
But these are just British babies whose parents happen to be Muslim, but so what?
There are some people who think that. Then there are some who think, well, there are also problems that will come along with that. At the very least, I think one has to concede that this is an extremely significant change. One of the things the 2011 census showed was that the Muslim population of England and Wales had doubled in the last 10 years alone. I think it's a legitimate question for people and a legitimate story for newspapers to run, to say what are the effects of that going to be.
Rushnara Ali, significant change, and there's big public concern about it.
Well, I think it's completely understandable for newspapers to report on changes and new information. But actually, as your report highlights, this is not news, this is not new. But what's important is that when these debates do take place, that we take care in the way we talk about British Muslims and other minorities, particularly in the context of a fueling debate about immigration in the run-up to elections. We must all take care in how we do that, so that people don't feel stigmatized
about this change.
I think that 1 in 10 people in this country come from an ethnic minority background. We have mixed race families, one of the largest in Europe. The different communities, including the British Muslim community, have made huge economic and social contributions to our country. And we do need to highlight the positives rather than focusing on the negative.
Well, then why,
it's very important not to stigmatize children, under 5 or over that age. And one of the dangers would be if alarmism leads to young people feeling alienated because of their religion.
Okay, but if diversity is so good, why is your Labour colleague Chuka Umunna saying that EU immigrants should be barred unless they've got a job offer?
Well, he's not saying that. What's important...
He said just that. He raised that suggestion
I think what's important is that we recognise that we have to manage migration, and we have to ensure that people feel at ease with each other within our society, with all our diversity, and that we are strong in that. And that means having debates, legitimate debates about all of these issues, but doing that in a measured and sensible way.
Why is it that a lot of people don't seem to feel at ease about Islam? As the chap in the report there that Katie Razzle interviewed said, there's always a negative. There's a kind of code in various newspapers, TV, that it's something to be feared, whether it's British Muslims going out to fight in Syria, or TV broadcasters erroneously saying that Woolwich attackers had a Muslim appearance.
Well, sure, but I mean, Woolwich attackers, for instance, did say that what they were doing was in the name of Allah. And you can't blame people for noticing that, in the same way you can't blame people for noticing news stories that go on, like people from Britain, born and brought up in Britain, going out to Syria to fight jihad in Syria. You can't blame the general public for noticing these things, and I think you should not blame the media for reporting them. The question again and again comes down to this thing as if people who notice these things are the problem. Now, of course, there will be some people who'll notice those things, who'll say terrible things and try to do some terrible things in response. But the problem is not the story. The problem we have as a country is what do we do with this information going forward? And that's why
Well, are you suggesting that the government should somehow engineer the birth rate?
Well, no, government isn't able to become a prophylactic device. I mean, the point about this is that there is significant public concern. For this reason, the children that are born today and the religious communities they are born into are likely to have a very significant impact on the country tomorrow. And there are reasons for people in this country, including prominent Muslims who have spoken about this, there are reasons to be concerned because of some things that are done from within small segments of the Muslim community. It's only a few months ago that a prominent left-wing Muslim journalist in this country said that anti-Semitism in parts of the Muslim community in Britain is rife and commonplace. We've just seen in recent weeks, Channel 4 has led the way in the story of gender segregation at universities.
Okay.
30 years ago, you would not have thought that we would be discussing religiously based gender segregation because of a religious minority.
Let me put that to Roshnara Ali. There is a public policy implications there. Segregation in universities is one point. Wearing the veil, where that's appropriate to wear the veil, is another.
Well, it's really interesting listening to Douglas getting carried away with himself once again over these issues. Essentially, if you replaced the word Muslim with Jewish or with black and minority ethnic when Douglas was speaking, that would have a very different, profound implication on what he's saying. That's not to say that there aren't issues within the Muslim community on a number of fronts, but there are issues in many communities, and what we must do is not caricature and blame everybody in the name of
the Jewish or Hindu birth rate wouldn't have hit the headlines.
I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. The point is, and this can't be emphasized enough, if two Jewish British people had hacked the head off a British soldier earlier last year, that would have brought a lot of insight and a lot of interrogation into the Jewish communities of this country.
But the Jewish Hindu birth rate doesn't hit the headlines, does it? Let's address that point.
My point is, again, the facts matter. We cannot have a debate about this if we say everything that matters must be taken off the table, and everything that is by the wayside is what we'll concentrate on.
I'm not saying that. I think it's entirely right for the media to report on facts. It's very important that people like you are responsible in how you use that information. Well, and all of us have a responsibility.
Okay, here's a fact for you on that point. 140 Muslim faith schools, which some say increase segregation. There's almost as many Jewish faith schools. You don't hear about that so much. Are you as concerned about Jewish faith schools?
I absolutely think you do. And if I just go back to the point I made, if Jews on campuses in this country were demanding that men and women had to sit separately in events on public space, I would have a problem with that as well, and I would state that problem. It comes back to the same thing. If you ignore the facts and say the facts can't be reported, if you say the Times can't talk about the census, whatever the timing, it means that newspapers at no stage, whether it's right after a census or a year after a census, can report the facts. I think the facts matter, and I think that the way in which we see our future as a country, we have to have these facts injected into that debate. And yes, if any other minority had this problem, I would raise it about that as well.
I'm afraid we've run out of time for facts now. Douglas Murray, Roshnara Ali, thank you very much for joining me.
Douglas Murray's pointing out something that everybody knows, but almost nobody is willing to say publicly. Demographic change matters. Culture matters. Identity matters. And simply pretending that everything is fine doesn't make it fine. He's not dehumanizing people. He's acknowledging a problem that leaders keep sweeping under the rug. When a community grows rapidly and fails to integrate, you don't just get diversity, you get division. You get parallel societies. You get neighborhoods without shared values or shared civic loyalty. And Douglas is right. Integration isn't racist. It's responsible. Every strong country, every stable society has to be anchored in shared principles. You can have religious freedom, personal freedom, cultural expression, but you also need a common moral center. It's not about hating anyone. It's about protecting the social fabric that holds a nation together. It's about making sure people who come to a Western democracy actually buy into Western democratic values, like equality before the law, free speech, pluralism, the rule of law. But here's the truth. Britain can welcome people of all backgrounds, but it cannot afford to welcome ideologies that reject the very foundation that makes Britain Britain. That's not xenophobia, that's self-preservation. And Douglas isn't calling for war against a religion. He's calling for honesty, for clarity, and for boundaries. The West should not be ashamed of its values. It should expect those values to be respected. That's not intolerance. That's the bare minimum to keep a civilization functioning. A nation that refuses to defend its identity doesn't survive. Douglas Murray isn't stirring fear. He's sounding the alarm so people wake up before it's too late. Because loving your country means protecting the principles that make it worth loving in the first place. If you like this content overall, hit that subscribe button over there in the corner. We'd love to stay in touch. Take care.